Just before we get started, do you have a business or maybe a staff event coming up, either virtually or in person? Well, why not drop the organiser a line and suggest me as one of the speakers? Go to pennyhaslam.co.uk to find out more. Hi, this time on the Penny Haslam podcast, what happened today? How did I feel? How did I respond? How did I react? What went well? And what would I like to do more of? Because that's nice, isn't it? Today, I want to talk about reflective practice, which is the posh word for journaling, diarying, writing stuff down. Reflective practice basically involves the process of thinking critically about one's actions, decisions, and experiences. And the reason for talking about it today is because so many of us have goals of learning, improving our skills, quite often the soft skills of communication and better relationships at work, which is all good for colleagues' development in their role, isn't it? And how they could be seen for future opportunities. And this is where reflective practice can be a highly effective and, frankly, free to use tool. I mean, that's great, isn't it? Now, it's often used, this phrase reflective practice is used in professional contexts like education, healthcare, social work, perhaps, nursing. Okay, so where individuals, they want to reflect on their work to better understand their strengths, weaknesses, and the cases that they're working on, perhaps, and where they can grow. So I wonder why it's not used more widely as an everyday thing in the workplace or at the end of the day or the end of the week, at the end of the month, that kind of thing. It's not like we're not used to writing other stuff down. We've got a to-do list. You should see mine. It's a to-don't list, really. Emails, reports, all this kind of functional writing. But when it comes to capturing our own thoughts and behaviours and then, going the extra mile and reflecting on them, whenever I've suggested it to my coaching clients, for example, it is sometimes met with a bit of a face. The one that goes, journaling? And I'm guessing it smacks of cringy teenage diary writing. Dear Diary. Adrian Mole, of course, and Bridget Jones's diary, which is a sort of, wish list and listing of what cigarettes have been smoked and how much she weighs and stuff like that. So it wasn't particularly useful as a role model, those ideas. And perhaps, we also fall back on excuses about, well, I don't know what to write, or I don't have the time. And those are fair points, but it's well worth suggesting that people give it a try. And here is why. This is the argument. Journaling, reflective practice, self-coaching, you could call it, helps to develop self-awareness. So people can recognize their own thoughts, their feelings and behaviors in specific situations. It's not just a hunch or a blur. It helps develop critical analysis. Why did you act in a certain way? What was effective? What wasn't? And then considering alternative approaches. And I like that because it really brings something that might be an internal experience into an external, look at something. You can turn something over in your hand rather than having it in your head. There's learning as well. It helps develop learning. So you can use insights from your reflection to help inform and improve your future actions or decision making. So you're learning, which is a really cool thing. And then, you've got the kind of continual improvement in that mix as well. Okay, so incorporating reflective practice can bring about better decision making, enhanced professional development, and improving outcomes in your work and personal life. It is a super, super thing. And that first one I mentioned, self-awareness. Now that in itself is a superpower for teams and organizations, and of course for individuals as well. Eric C. Deardorff and Robert S. Rubin were researchers studying the impact of self-awareness on team performance. Their findings suggest that higher self-awareness among team members leads to better team performance. And that's because self-aware people or colleagues are more likely to understand their strengths and weaknesses. They're more likely to communicate effectively. They're more likely to collaborate more efficiently. That would be great for productivity, wouldn't it? So the study also highlights that teams composed of members with high self-awareness tend to have better interpersonal relationships, clearer roles, and they can adapt to challenges, which is resilience, isn't it? Ultimately, you've then got a kind of ecosystem of skills, abilities, attitudes that can improve overall team outcomes. I mean, what is not to like? A free tool that gives you all of that. So how would you go about explaining how to do it to a colleague? And how might you do it yourself? So it's probably well worth having a go yourself, isn't it? So then you can wax lyrical about it. So if you can write, you can journal. And it doesn't matter what format, what time or duration, how long you write for in terms of pages, or indeed what you write about. What I'd like to say is that it's not story writing fiction. It's not bullet points or cryptic messages. I think you've got to go the full distance with full sentences in your approach. And it doesn't matter whether you dedicate a notebook and pen to the job, or you use an app on your phone, and there are lots of those, or you perhaps keep a Word document open on your desktop. Personally, I am from the ink age, so it's pen and paper for me every time. Now, I used to write when I was heavy into this. Used to write 3 pages every day in the morning. They weren't tiny little pages, Post-its. They were actually A5. So I used to write 3 pages every day in the morning before I did anything else apart from drink coffee, of course. I let my brain flow onto the page. And through that daily practice, I suppose, I learned about myself, what did and what didn't work for me. What I enjoyed personally, what floated my boat, what was good for me professionally, and how I felt about myself, and what had been good for me and what hadn't been so good for me. And then, I began to spot in patterns and limiting self-beliefs. And it wasn't easy, that's not comfortable. It's validating, sure, and galvanizing, but it is sometimes an uncomfortable picture. But, get on with it, really, isn't it? So which is what I did. So yeah, it's not story writing or anything like that. You can just begin to turn things over without judgment. And if you like, you can ask yourself questions. I think this is a really cool way of doing it, actually. So it's what happened today? How did I feel? How did I respond? How did I react? What went well? And why did it go well? What could have gone better? And how could it go better next time? What could I do differently? How could I respond differently? What could I think differently? What have I learned? And what would I like to do more of? Because that's nice, isn't it? And so with regards to making it a sustainable, consistent and regular habit that's part of the working day or week, leaders and managers can really play a part in this. They can ask their direct reports, if they don't already, to sort of report in on a monthly basis. So this month, what have you achieved? What hasn't worked so well? What do you need to make progress on? And what have you learned about yourself? Now, if you come to that question every month and you haven't really made any notes, then you might be fetching for ideas, and you might have forgotten the stuff 4 weeks ago that was really brilliant or really dreadful, and your experience and your feeling around it. So it's an advantage to make notes through the month, so that anyone being asked that can easily come up with the sort of content for that, scheduling those questions, asking them every month. And if nothing else, it helps the colleague to gather evidence and information for the more formal moments, such as, your personal development plan, your PDP, or setting objectives for the coming year, whatever it might be useful to sort of capture all the time. So use those ideas and arguments, that research as well, that evidence, to convince the people in your organisation to have a go at reflective practice. It might even be that people begin to embrace it. You could suggest it to someone you're coaching or mentoring at the moment to help their progress and learning and development. Or perhaps you've got a colleague in your team who you feel isn't reaching their potential, or who doesn't get along with others so well. But a self-awareness there might be a really useful aspect. And of course, try it for yourself. And you've got to start it. Please promise me you'll do this with the classic Dear diary. No, I'm only joking. Don't do that. Just jump right in, put a date on it, start writing what's in your brain, have a moan, have a whinge, have a celebrate, have a kind of, ooh, I'm all right, me. And before you know it, you'll have self-awareness and you'll be a better team player. All these great things. But yeah, really have a go with that. Don't reject it just because you think you haven't got the time or you don't know what to write. Thanks for listening.